Strength Podcast is sponsored by Avantacool.
Avantacool.
Yeah, cold plunges. Who's surprised? We got a cold plunge sponsor. Yeah. I met Jeff Rempfer at a first responder conference not too long ago. He and his brother Dave are the owners, and Jeff's a first responder guy. They are killing it. They're this amazing cold plunges. We just got one put in at our house. How do you like it?
I love it, actually. I mean, it's
Game changer, huh?
It is a game changer, especially from coming from a horse trough?
Horse trough.
That's what we've been using.
It worked.
Hey, it did. It worked. It was great. I love it.
But it doesn't have a UV filter, freaking regular filter. This thing has a hot tub filter.
Yeah, it goes hot and cold. It's amazing.
It goes to 104 degrees and then all the way down to
45 degrees.
30s. Into the high 30s is what they'll do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy good stuff. We love it.
You don't need to go that low to get the benefits.
Yeah, low 40s is actually really what you need.
That's my favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah. 45 degrees, 3 minutes, and then get me out.
And then get you out. Yeah, we love it. But the main things that our sponsor wants us to highlight is that it's got an all aluminum frame. It's light, easy to move around. We put it up on our deck. You're able to get it up the stairs and stuff like that.
Installing it was the easiest thing. Like that was the easiest part, was installing it. I was surprised. We took it up a flight of stairs onto our deck, and it was not that hard.
Yeah.
I was surprised how light it was.
Right.
And then even like filling it up. How was that for you?
Super easy.
Yeah.
Really easy to use. I absolutely love this thing. It's got this huge pump in it. So it gets cold really quick and it can heat up really quick as well. And the best part, most hot tubs use like a 220 cables. You have to direct line in. Oh, yeah. This thing uses 110. You just plug it into your regular friggin' outlet and you're ready to go. Another amazing benefit. If you use the code STRENGTH24, you will get 25% off.
25% off. That's amazing.
Amazing. They're hooking us up. They really love the cause. We love them. We couldn't be more grateful to these guys for sponsoring the show. So if you need a cold plunge, Avantacool. That is AVANTIKUL.com.
Avantacool. That is so funny, though. I mean, it makes sense.
Horse's mouth, folks.
What were we going to say? Oh.
Yeah,
from horse's mouth.
It was just pretty crazy. And I just think when people say, "Oh, I'm not addicted to, I don't have any addictions," I think I've seen you in my store like 3 times a day getting those big Stanley mugs full of Coke and
I think we're going to leave this in. We've already started the podcast here, folks. Welcome to the Finding Strength podcast.
Okay.
We've got our good friend, we've been recording.
Yeah.
Right? That's going in. Oh. If you want some context, this is Susan Peterson, our good friend. How many gas stations do you own?
Well, we did at one time own 25.
25.
And then we sold out and we sold our wholesale part and most of our retail part. And now we only own 4.
So according to Susan Peterson, this mega conglomerate owner of gas stations, Utah County people, you're freaking addicted to sugar. You better get your shit together here.
But listen, Utah County, you're our bread and butter.
Bread and butter. Don't stop
You're our
now.
bread and butter. We love you so much. So just want to get that out there as a little side note. Keep coming to our stations and buying lots of sugar and pop because we love you guys.
Yes. This is
Matt
why
won't
we
be
love
there
Susan.
to shame you.
I'm sorry. I try not to be shamey, but it just happens. Just flows forth so naturally.
No, but I think I think what was a good topic that you were getting to is that people are addicted to things. Like there'll be people who will be like, "I'm not addicted to anything," and you're like, "You've been in here 4 times a day to fill up that big gulp." So
sure,
like sugar is addicting,
it is way.
It's hard. It's hard to get off that stuff.
It's my biggest addiction.
Me too.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I have to work so hard on it every day to say, okay, you've already had a Butterfinger.
Yes.
You maybe better have some fruits and vegetables to go along with all that.
Is that your candy bar, Butterfinger? You
Love Butterfinger.
Mine too.
That's the only
I don't know
candy
anybody
he
else who
will
likes them like me.
Isn't it the best
Oh my goodness.
candy
It's
bar out
amazing.
there? I don't know why they
turned
make
her,
anymore.
Well, I turned her on to Butterfinger shakes, and now those are the
Yes.
greatest things on
Those are the
planet.
greatest thing on the
They
Right.
they are the best,
Oh, yeah.
and caramel cashew
Caramel
shakes
cashew.
are
Ooh,
always
all right.
really good.
All right.
I've never
Yeah.
tried that.
Susan
Caramel
knows.
That's
cashew. I
another
love
one.
cashews
Like
too.
I know my
yeah.
sugar.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
it's kind of your wheelhouse.
Exactly.
Well, we've got Susan on the podcast today. Thanks for joining us, guys, for listening. Susan has been a longtime listener, longtime friend. I met Susan years and years and years ago working with the Sobriety Foundation, which
Yes.
you founded, correct?
Yes, I was one of the signers on the
One of the signers,
501c3.
How long ago did Sobriety Foundation come about?
My son died in 2011. Right after he passed away in January, a group of people in recovery came to me in 2011, around March, April area, when I'm super comatose with the death of my son still. And they asked me if I'd be one of the signers on the 501c3. They wanted to start a nonprofit that deals with sober living, because sober living is not covered by insurance. It's the part of recovery that isn't covered by insurance, and we feel like it's the bridge back into the community. So we really felt like that was a huge, important part of the recovery process.
Well, and it's this Sobriety Foundation. You guys can look it up. Listeners out there, you can look it up. SobrietyFoundation.com.
.org.
Excuse me.
Organization.
Donations are, this. If you want to put your money to an organization that's actually really for sure helping people, this is a great place to do that, because
Yes, it is.
Sobriety Foundation, if you're not super aware of like the recovery community that you're hopefully becoming more acquainted with now that you listen to the podcast, right? We had Ty Hansen on a few weeks ago. If you haven't heard that one, we've gotten so much feedback about Ty's podcast,
Yeah,
maybe more
awesome.
than any other since probably Mason's.
Tyler is amazing.
He's an incredible
I
person.
love
He's a
the
good
guy.
dude.
Oh,
Yeah.
And he owns Steps.
He owns Steps, and Steps has been a huge supporter of Sobriety Foundation.
Yes.
We send a lot of people to their sober living homes, and Ty supports us every time I call him for a sponsorship. He is right on it. I love
He's
him.
so good.
Yeah,
He's a very amazing pillar in the
Yeah.
recovery
he
community.
really is.
His heart is.
Well, and
Yeah.
these people have these severe addictions, and they need help. They don't know what to do, so they go to a therapist like me, and then that's not enough help, and they fail, and they relapse, and they need tons of help, and they go to a recovery place, right? Residential treatment center like
Yes.
Steps.
Yeah.
And then after they get done at Steps, after 30, 60, 90 days, that's the beginning. That is not even close to the end of the recovery journey, because staying sober is hard, but actually recovering from your childhood and a lifetime of abuse and trauma
Absolutely.
takes forever. And so they need a place to live. And that's what recovery residence is. That's what sober living is. And there's this this massive kind of, I don't know, just like a gap of need where there wasn't funds, because you come out of treatment and your insurance is paying for it, and then you got to get into housing, and then there's nothing there. So Susan Peterson and her friends come along, and they're like, you know what? I got an idea. Let's help people who need that
Yeah.
gap
By the
filled.
time they get out of recovery too, they have exhausted every avenue to get resources, because they've burned bridges with family, with friends, with neighbor. I mean, there's really nobody that even want to see them.
Right.
I mean, because they've stolen or they've
lost all their trust.
they've lost all their trust,
Yeah.
and so they come to us, and if they don't get a scholarship from us, then usually they're homeless.
Oh, that's so sad.
So, and it's really sad
Yeah, it
to
really
see that.
It is.
And it's so hard because I answer the phones to cut down on costs. And so I hear all the stories of these desperate people out there needing a place to live, or parents calling me desperately. They've spent all their money on rehab. They have no money for sober living, and they know that their sons or daughters still need
it.
that.
Yeah.
And Mike said, my husband said, Susan, you got to start recording these phone calls, and you need to start playing them at your once a year fundraiser or your speakeasy,
Yeah.
and let people know how desperate people are out there to get their kids into sober living or get sober living for themselves.
Yeah.
So
Is it like an application process?
It is. So what they do is they go on sobrietyfoundation.org and they fill out a application for sober living. And it's a pretty extensive application because we need a lot of
I
the
bet.
questions answered to get grants and everything. So when you go on there, fill out everything, fill out every question because we need you to do that. We don't look really at incomplete applications because we need all of those questions answered to even be able to give them funding.
Yeah.
So that's a huge part of it is make sure that you totally fill out the application itself.
It's a pretty cool organization.
Yeah.
Matt, you've been on our board.
Was on the
You was
board,
on our
yeah.
board for a while.
Many
That's
moons
awesome.
ago. Yeah,
Yes.
it's pretty cool. Well, and even since then, it's grown immensely. Like we went to
Oh,
the Speakeasy this
yeah.
last year. The fundraiser you guys do, it's massive. Really, really
We
cool.
walked in and we're like,
Oh,
go Susan,
Yeah,
this
she's
is
crushing
amazing.
it.
Like we were just on a cloud 9. It was awesome.
Well, we helped more people last year than we've ever helped before. We give out 277 scholarships, which is our biggest number yet.
that's amazing.
This year, our goal is set to give over 300, and we're very much on the way to
That's
reach
great.
that
Wow.
goal. So we're excited
That's
about that.
Awesome.
And you know what? We could not do this without people believing in us, and all of our donors and all of our people give us scholarships, come to our yearly fundraiser and donate there. We couldn't do it without everybody. So we're just behind the scenes, getting people scholarships. It's all the people out there that are donating to us and believe in us and what we're doing that make us who we are.
That's
So-
great.
That's really cool.
So how did it start? You
Yeah.
go.
No, go ahead. I was going to say the same thing. I was just going to ask you. I said, what I was going to ask you was, how did you get to signing this nonprofit? Like, what's the origin story of you now sitting here today and helping other people?
Well, my son struggled with addiction from the age about 13 on. My husband had a back surgery about when he was 15 years old. My son was 15 years old. And my son started stealing his OxyContin. And of course, when you've had back surgery, you're kind of out of it. And he didn't realize that his pain meds were, being stolen. And finally, he came to me and said, I am not taking this many pills. There is something going on. And by that time, my son was pretty well into it. He'd kind of changed a little bit when he was around 15. He quit the football team, which was a big deal. He was hazed by some of the older football players, and he didn't want to be on that team, so he quit. And we tried so hard to make him, hey, listen, this is just part of the game. Buck up, get back on the team. Because he was into football. He was huge,
passionate about it?
250-pound kid, played offense and defense in junior high, and just loved football. But anyway, so that's kind of the beginning of his demise. Is I'm getting off the football team and then hanging out with a different group, and his friends changed immediately, and we could just see some really, really bad signs that we just really were concerned about. So anyway, he started doing drugs that are, I'm telling his story from my point of view.
Yes.
That's
Right.
certainly
Which
not.
is what we want to hear.
Yes. Yeah.
I think he started smoking marijuana around age 14 and then got into the heavier drugs 15, 16. And we finally took him out of his high school and put him into an alternative high school where he stayed there all 24/7, which was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, is to not have my son at home. But we almost felt like that if we hadn't have done that, then he wouldn't have been around, much longer. So, so we graduated high school at this alternative high school with a 3.8.
Awesome.
Did very well. Then went to the U of U and joined a fraternity. And that wasn't real good for him. But he did real well for a long time. He'd go on and off. When he started running a station for us, and then he started his own business. He started doing ATMs and it put him in all of the stations around. We had, some in with a lot of the people because my husband delivered to about 100 stations along the Wasatch Front. He was a Chevron jobber. And so we could get him into a lot of the stations. And so he put ATMs in there and just done really, really great. He also, it was kind of like a red box. He also did movies.
Oh, cool.
So he rented out a little kiosk for movies. A real, it was just like his dad, really smart about business and really good with his money. The whole time that he was doing drugs, we can't remember anything that he took from us, any money or hawked anything, or he just made it by himself. He was really good about just, paying for, if he wanted something, he'd usually just go buy it.
Yeah. The high functioning addict.
Yeah.
He was a high functioning addict.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and
that's so hard for families to deal because I don't know. I mean, we'll definitely continue with the story. You've heard the podcast. You know that I love to interrupt people.
You do it. You go for it. I love this.
Because I just imagine myself. I put myself in your shoes, Susan, and I go, okay, I try so hard to help my son. He seems like he's doing really, really, really well. But behind the scenes, there's all this stuff underneath. And then you have listeners who are out there going like, oh, what if that's my kid? Like, what does it feel like as that's happening? And then there's this moment where you get it and you're like, oh my goodness, it wasn't what it was. What's that moment and what's that like?
Oh, it's so hard. It is so hard. And I look back now on how enabling I was. And I just feel like I was loving my child, but really I was enabling him horribly. Love to go back and do that over. I'd love to go back and do more tough love now that I have been in the recovery community and I know exactly what parents are doing now to help their child so they're not enabling them. I'd love to go back and have a do-over, Matt. I really would. I'd love to. I've got a person on my board, the Sobriety Foundation board. She runs Changes. And it's an organization. Her name is Terry Olson, which she's the most fabulous person. She lost her son to a drug overdose too. And she started Changes when she wanted to help parents because you're helpless. You don't even know what to do.
So helpless.
You don't even
That's
know.
A hard feeling too.
And they cover it up so well. And people that are in addiction are master manipulators, and they manipulate their parents to no end. And in the process, you want to believe them.
100%.
You want to believe everything that they're telling you.
Yeah.
But then you're knowing that they're self-destructive.
Yeah.
I mean, you know that they're not doing well. I mean, I would see him, I said he was this real strong, healthy kid. And then when he started using, he lost a lot of weight. And I know it was the drugs, and then he'd gain a lot of weight. And I know it was the booze, it's just kind of,
But at the time, we feel like we're doing the best we can, right? Especially as moms. I think any mom that we sat in here on this couch and was like, did you do it right? I think all of us would be like, oh, I want to go back.
Oh, I know.
Because my kid's not even full grown. And I'm like, can we go back? I'm like, can we go back?
Oh,
I need to go back and do a few things from when he was like 7 to now. It's just hard.
I can remember my dad, he was a hardworking farmer. And one of the times that we had to put Carson in rehab, my dad was at my house and I was just a basket case. He's our only boy. We have 2 daughters and a son, and he's our baby. And my dad just looked at me and he said, I should have done this, or I should have done that, and Dad just goes, you know what, Susie, you know how many times that I'd wake up in the middle of the night when it was calving season, and I would say, oh my gosh, I need to go out and check on those cows. He goes, and I'd been up night after night after night after night, and I was so tired. I would just say, oh, I can't. I'm so tired, and I'd go back to sleep, and I'd go out in the morning, and I would see that one of my cows had calved and it was dead. And if I would have got up in the night when I was prompted to, I mean, and we weren't we were not wealthy people. I mean, that was a huge, big deal if we lost, a cow.
Yes. Yeah.
I have 9 brothers and sisters, and we were raised on a farm, and we had to scrimp and save for
I was gonna say,
everything
that's
that
how
we
you
had.
lived, was
And
off the
so
farm.
that was a big deal to him. I mean, that could have fed his family and clothed his family, and I can just remember that every time I'd say, "Oh, I should have," or "I could have," or remember my dad just saying that. And we do the best that we can.
Yep.
In that circumstance, we do the best that we can. And I try so hard to not live with regrets because I've had so many in my life. But I still am learning, and I still am growing every single day of my life.
Well, and that's what regrets are, right? It's
Oh,
learning.
absolutely.
We're learning from, I wish I would have done that better. Okay, if it comes up again, then I have another chance of retrying to do this a different way rather than the way I did it last time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, that's hard. I as a parent, it is so hard. But I do know Carson was a loving child, and I know he loved his mom and dad beyond. Well, I know the drugs were just too much for him to handle. It was too much of a pull. He wanted to get away from it. It just was so hard for him.
Yeah.
He would go on and off drugs his whole life. He was in about 5 different rehabs. Would never go to sober living though.
Interesting.
Always
Okay.
thought that by the time he got out of rehab, I'm clean.
Yeah.
I'm sober. I'm just going to go right back to my jobs. I'm going to go right back to my friends,
Okay.
back to the old habits,
Yep.
and eventually he'd just get right back into it again. We encouraged him strongly to go to a sober living home and maybe get some sober friends and get a different job and kind of change his, because I really feel like if they can do that, if they change it up
Yes.
completely,
Yes.
new friends, new jobs,
Yes.
new surroundings, I really feel like they've got a better chance of.
How was sober living back in? Was it a thing?
No.
It's not as much it was
wasn't-
today,
there
right?
was more like halfway houses
Yeah.
and
Yes.
Matt, you probably know more about it than I do. But it was more, there wasn't a lot of sober living
Okay.
homes. Today, we are so fortunate and blessed to have amazing sober living homes, amazing recovery community in Utah. We work with about 30 in the state of Utah. And we go and we check them out. We go to their home. We visit them. We make sure they're licensed and accredited. We stay in contact with our scholarship recipients the whole 2 months of their scholarship. And then also after they've gone, 6 months and 12 months, then we check up with them too. But we do have some amazing recovery places here in the state.
It's changed a lot over the years.
So
where
much.
now there's it's almost like a technology has developed around this in a sense where there's more awareness about what works and what doesn't. And this idea of changing your environment is now like integral to the recovery process. Whereas
Sure.
before it was more just like, you're going to will yourself through this thing. And still that kind of idea is a little bit, it lingers, especially if you're outside of the recovery community and you look at people who have addiction and you look at them and you go, they're just not strong or something. Or even people, this is something I've ran into, right? Is even people who are struggling with addiction themselves and are having trouble kind of reconciling this addictive part of them with themselves. They're beginning to kind of, wrestle with this idea of like, oh, maybe I am an addict, or maybe I am addicted, or maybe this is harder than I think it is, or maybe I can't do this. Well, maybe I'll just try harder.
Yeah.
I'm going to will
Definitely.
myself out of this
Yeah.
thing. And what we've now come to realize in the recovery community is that's just not the case.
Mm-hmm.
It is not a matter of willpower. That's a big part of it, sure.
Mhm.
But when you really look at the actual neurobiology of willpower, what you begin to understand is there's parts of the brain that are literally deficient in their capacity for willing behavioral change. And now we understand what is necessary in order to create and develop those parts of the brain. And a major component of development of those parts of the brain is social support.
I was gonna say connection. That's
It's
what I was
huge.
thinking. Is it connection?
Absolutely huge. Social support. And that's what a
Okay.
sober living provides.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's friends.
Mhm.
Because
Well,
the downfall of people who can't get it right is they go back to, just like Carson.
Carson
Right?
did.
What do
Yeah.
we do? You go back to his old friends.
Sure.
And it's that old adage, show me your friends, they'll show you your future.
Exactly.
Oh, we tell our
And
kids that all the
as
time.
simple and cliche as that stupid phrase is, my God, is it true?
It's so true.
It really
It's true.
is. And, we've even, by the time we've given them the 2-month scholarship, they have 90% of them, 95% of them have a job.
Yeah.
And they remain in the same sober living home that we put them in because
They got friends.
they've got,
Yeah, they found their
sober
connection.
friends.
Yeah.
And then even after the 6 months, when we check in with them, a lot of them are still in that same sober living home.
Yep.
Aw.
I mean, they love that
Yeah.
environment,
Yeah.
and they want to be accountable because they have random drug testing, so that keeps them accountable. And they are, even though they can be out on their own because they are
Yeah.
financially stable
Yeah.
to do
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
they still like that environment. So
Which makes sense though. Like just from doing the podcast and having people come on and talk about recovery and stuff like that. Like the recovery community is incredible.
it is.
They have
cool,
each
huh?
other's backs.
They really do.
Like, and you're not just like getting this surface thing. You can get real deep and open up your chest, and like you will have people just like taking care of you and sitting in the dark with you until the light comes on. Like just the recovery community itself. I see why those people stay there.
And two, as me being a part of the recovery community, and I have a lot of addictions, but drugs and alcohol, I haven't gotten in trouble with them. But I do see, even myself, people wrap me in a blanket when I'm hugging me and thank you for doing what you're doing. And,
Yeah.
I had a friend that got a scholarship. She turned her life around, and you were the part, and it's so nice. They even bring me into the fold.
I love it.
They're
They're a connection.
they're just amazing to me.
Yeah.
Whenever I go anywhere, they're just amazing humans. Once they get their life back on track, and they're working so hard to be the amazing human being that they know that they can be, or hopefully they will learn to know that they can be. Their self-esteem takes a huge hit.
for sure.
And
And then seeing the person next to them succeed probably is like,
Exactly.
okay, they can do it.
Mhm.
I think I can do it too. If
Yeah.
they can do it, I can do it too. Yeah.
the recovery centers have changed so much since my son was in them compared to what's going on today.
Yeah.
All the mindfulness and the
Yes.
cold baths and
Yes.
all these things, all
The
these
tools.
tools
Mhm.
that they didn't even have back then at all.
No.
They weren't even known back then. I think that's really helped a lot
Well,
of people.
this is one of my big, bees in my bonnet is like we need to use science in recovery.
I agree.
And what the successful recovery centers do is they use science.
Right.
They use what's actually in the literature and what works. And we have a robust amount of data. We have so much freaking information about what actually works. And if you just follow this prescription, it's great. But we didn't used to have that.
Right.
We had large scale organizations doing their own studies, like SAMHSA, great organization, right? Substance Abuse Mental Health something association. Anyways, they do great work, right? And they would come out with these recommendations, and it was like, that's what you do.
Right.
And now we're kind of going like, well, actually, check this out and this out and this out and this out. And then we get these amazing, super brilliant, very bold guys like Gabor Mate, who just has blown the recovery community apart. Went and did his own research by himself up in Vancouver at this dingy, abandoned hotel, talking to heroin addicts for years and years and years and years. And he wrote books, and they did studies, and then they took that information and then they used it, and then this guy used it, and this guy used it. And it wasn't just these big organizations creating standards of practices anymore. Now it was actual experiential knowledge being applied to these treatment centers, and it started to work.
Yep.
And then people were kind of going like, oh, okay, so 12 steps is cool, but here's why 12 steps is cool. And the big thing that we found out, and this is one of my freaking major things I talk about all the time. I tell therapists, like, you got to have bits.
Yes.
Right.
Bits.
It's like not quite like you're like a comedian, but like,
But there's not a one size fit all.
No.
Do you think for
Yeah.
everybody? I mean, like you said, I mean, a lot of them can to do the 12 steps and they can get clean and
Yeah.
sober for the rest of the life.
It doesn't
It's
work
not for
everyone.
everybody.
but the one thing that 12 steps does, and this is one of my bits, as I say, of all the 12 steps, there's only one that is indispensable, and it's the 12th.
I like the 12th step.
It's the only step.
Yeah, I love that.
The first 11 can't exist without the 12th. The
I
12th
agree.
is the step.
Yeah.
And they all cumulatively add up to this 12th step. And basically what that is carry the message. Take what you've learned, share it. Do
Yes.
something with it. And so one of the things that I tell therapists, I'm like, listen, your job, and I say this to clients still all the time, people I work with, my job is to be a recruiter. I'm here, I'm recruiting you to the fold, to the army of recovered, loving, compassionate people
Right.
who are going out in the world. And you can't just worry about yourself anymore.
No.
That's not, you did that.
Yeah.
Your job now is to do 12th step. You need to go out and you need to carry the message. You need to share it. You need to help. You need to get a job. You need to do service. You need to do something for the community at large. And when you start to do that, all of a sudden that hole in your heart, it's filled.
Right.
And you're
So
feeling
is,
it.
And so is someone else's heart.
And so
Yep.
and it's this contagion.
That's what's
and that's
beautiful
what
about
that's
it.
what
It's
people
a ripple effect.
Yes.
It just truly
Yep.
is.
Well, and that's what right? It's make the mess the message. It's
Yeah.
we over me. There's all these like phrases that we use to talk about it here, but really that's what you did in the
Right.
wake of your son's death. You're like, all right, I'm no longer gonna sit in my pain. I'm gonna do something, and look what that does. And I think that that's what I've found in my many years of being helping person guy is the people that really are happy, the people that are living in this abundance, and they're just couldn't be more grateful for where they are. Yeah, their life is hard sometimes. Yeah, freaking things suck. Yeah, we got back pain like we're talking about earlier. But in the end, right, like I'm here to help people and provide
Exactly.
a service, and that comes back to me tenfold. Why would I ever stop?
Yeah.
And I just wish people could get a hold of that. I wish they
Yeah.
could grab onto that
Do
and
you know-
see how powerful it is. But it's hard to do.
It is hard. And I've had a lot of therapy in my life, which I totally recommend everybody does. And one of my therapists said when I was, in my world,
Yep.
and I was, feeling so sorry for myself, she just looked at me and she goes, this isn't about you.
Yeah.
And I just went, no, wait a minute. I'm the one that's hurting.
That's why I'm
the-
here.
I'm here.
Yeah.
I've got to heal. She goes, this
Mhm.
isn't about you. What are you going to give to other people? Get out of your head and start thinking about maybe what other people need.
Love that.
Take a batch of cookies over to your neighbor. Just start branching out. And so when this group of people in recovery came to me, that was one of the things I just thought, okay, we're going to do this. We are going to help as many people as we possibly can. Carson's death was still really fresh in my mind. And the worst part about it is, a lot of people lose their children to drug overdoses suddenly. I mean, they're just gone, and it's horrible. I got to see my son suffer for 10 and a half months in a coma. And comas, when you see them on TV, I mean, they're laying in a bed and their eyes are closed and they're
They look peaceful.
A coma's
Yeah.
not peaceful
No.
at all.
Mm-mm.
I'll let everybody know that. It is probably the worst 10 and a half months that our family has ever gone through, watching our son suffer the way he did. He had an emergency appendectomy and called me from the hospital, and he just said, Mom, I'm up here at LDS. I'm in so much pain. And I just, got up there like 2:00 in the morning. When I walked in his room, he was on a morphine drip. Okay. And I knew right then that it was going to be rough because he had been clean and sober a year prior.
Okay.
He had worked really hard, But boy, he just looked at me and he goes, Mom, I just love this stuff. And I just thought, oh no, here we go again.
Ugh.
And,
What's that moment like?
Yeah.
Oh,
What does that feel like?
It was so discouraging. I just felt so helpless. I just knew that we were going to go through this, and it did. He got drugs after he got out of the hospital. All of his prescriptions ran out after about 3 weeks, and so he went to an old drug dealer that he had turned in. He was so desperate to get drugs.
Yeah.
That's how powerful
That's
these
how
drugs
powerful
are.
it is. Yes.
He went to this old drug dealer and they gave him I think it was heroin and cocaine was what, we found in his system. They laced his drugs, and back then fentanyl wasn't a thing. So they laced his drugs with, the doctors thought either strong, they'd ground it down, either Advil or Tylenol. And what that does is it sends, once you put this in your body, it sends you have a heart attack.
Yeah.
It just totally stops the heart.
Nervous system.
Yeah, your nervous system.
It just shuts it right down.
Right?
All your organs are just shut down. And so his girlfriend found him in the nick of time, and she called 911. She didn't even know he was taking drugs. She'd never done drugs in her life.
Yeah.
And she didn't even know that. And she had been dating him this year that he wasn't on drugs.
He wasn't on them. Yeah.
And so she didn't even really
wasn't a
know what was
thing.
going on.
Yeah.
And so she called the EMTs. They come in. They shocked his heart twice. Didn't get a pulse. Third time they got it. Rushed him to LDS hospital. By that time, he was severely brain damaged. In fact, the doctors just said, it's going to be a miracle if he even lives. But he did. But it wasn't living. He had a trach, feeding tube, was in diapers, could never talk again, could never walk again. He knew on the inside, he could understand, but he couldn't talk and he couldn't relate and he couldn't, tell us anything. So it was just like he was living inside this body that wouldn't do anything. And I can't even imagine the frustration that he must have had.
Oh, hell.
It was really, really hard to watch. And the doctor told us, like, after about 6 weeks, because really Carson didn't know what had happened to him. And so finally I kept telling him, Carson, this is what happened. You took too many drugs, you had an overdose, you went into cardiac arrest. And about the third time I told him, he finally got it.
Oh, wow.
And he just looked at me and I said, do you understand? And he could nod his head. He could grunt. We'd always say, he could shake his head, for no and then up, down for yes. That's how we communicated. But his beautiful 250-pound body dwindled down to 120 pounds, and he died one night of pneumonia. So they called me, and they weren't able to bring him back. And it was horrifying. I mean, just, to see that. So every time I see all the work that we do as Sobriety Foundation, and it gets really, like I answer the phones and I hear all these horrible stories, I keep thinking, if we can just help one family, one person, if we can just, so that they don't have to go through what our family did, we're going to try our hardest. Because it was not fun to see your son
That's brutal.
have to suffer like that for 10 and a half months. So when my friend group or anybody goes, oh my gosh, Susan, you're doing so much work, or, you need to turn this over or whatever, I just think, and I'm kind of a control freak. I think I need to be there, and I need to be helping. I need to be doing something. And then that therapist is in the back of my mind hearing, and I hear her say it, it's not all about you. Susan, it's not all about you. So that is one of the main reasons why I feel like that we're still doing this. I'm the only one still from all of us, all the originals.
I was going to ask that. If you, yeah.
Yeah, I'm the only one that's still on there. But we have a great, you've been on there, Matt. We have a great
Sobriety
group of
Foundation's
people on
incredible.
our
You do.
our board of directors. I mean, we have 13 members that are just all dedicated. A lot of them have lost their children, loved ones. That's why they're on the board. They want to make a difference.
Well, and the connection you guys all have something that you all have lost.
Oh, definitely.
And so you have this power that you're
Yes.
able to take this love, this deep connection, and turn it into something so beautiful. It is so amazing how far like the Sobriety Foundation has come. It's awesome. Like,
Even if they use us as a stepping stone, and maybe they don't stay clean after they give them a scholarship. I know Evan Doan, he's on our board from USARA, one of the neatest kids I know. He was one of our scholarship recipients, and he went back one more time and used, but then he had that clarity when he had gotten a scholarship, and he wanted that for the rest of his life. And he had a rough life. I don't know if you've heard of his story before, but he really, really had a rough life. Lost both of his parents. There was no support at all to help him get clean. And that's most of the people that we give scholarships to. They don't have anywhere else to go.
Yeah.
yes. Yeah.
They have no money whatsoever. So anyway.
Your story is, I think what I was feeling as you're telling this story, one was a lot of helplessness.
Oh, absolutely.
I think the thing that's really kind of interesting was there's this dual helplessness that almost like compounds where Carson can't even communicate. And he's so helpless to this drug in the beginning. And then through extremely unfortunate, sounds like deliberate circumstances by these dealer guys, he ends up completely and totally helpless. Can't do anything. And then you're for 10 and a half months just sitting there. This mother wanted to help their helpless child not feel helpless, feeling helpless yourself. And that just creates this immense amount of pain.
It does. It does.
But
super hard.
What human beings do that no other species on the planet can do is we can take that pain, that helplessness, and we can find something about it that makes it no longer that. And it changes from helplessness to helpfulness.
There you go.
Right? If we can figure that out as a society, as individuals, as groups, as families, all of a sudden, these moments of helplessness, of pain, become opportunities for becoming helpful.
I
And
agree.
we transmute that pain. And it's no longer what it once was, and it becomes something new. And now the memory of Carson isn't just, one dimensional. It's not
Exactly.
just pain. It's not just helplessness. It's not just all this arduous, awful. It's look at all the beauty that was there. Look at all these things that have happened. Yes, darkness, light, but now we're going to do something with that and make the world a better place. Because what other option do we have?
Exactly.
And that's kind of where I come in with this whole thing is
It's like make your mess your message,
we,
right?
we don't
Yeah.
have another choice.
No, we
We
don't.
don't.
You're right.
I mean, we have the illusion of a choice. And the illusion of the choice is that you could choose to be selfish and miserable. But really?
Is that going to help?
Are they, and this is a Gabor Mate thing, really? Are you really actually choosing that?
Yeah.
yeah.
Are you consciously aware enough to be able to make that choice and say, no, I'm going to choose misery? I don't think people are.
I don't think they are either. I think
I don't.
everybody goes through a lot of stages of grieving.
Yes.
And
That's what I was just
and
gonna say. Yep.
I mean, the way I grieve is totally different than the way a lot of my friends that have lost their loved ones have grieved. I know this foundation has really helped me heal. Now, there was another mother on our group. I had her come on, and she couldn't stay on our
Couldn't do
board
it. Yeah.
because every time she would come to a board meeting, it would bring up all that again about her son. So for me, it was super helpful.
Yes.
Too much.
For
Yeah.
her, it wasn't.
Wasn't. Yeah.
And so, I mean, everybody grieves in totally different ways.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Well,
Right,
and I think also with what you were saying, Matt, is like once the incident or accident does happen, I think there is a process of feeling those emotions and grieving them and feeling like you're not going to get up the next day, I'm sure, for a while.
Oh, definitely.
Until you start having that awareness of, okay, am I choosing to do this or can I choose to do something else and start making, my message?
Yeah, because if I don't even have the awareness of the possibility,
Yeah.
how am I supposed to realize that it's even possible?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Does that make
don't you feel like
sense?
there's a timeline to that? To like where like a grieving person is gonna get that awareness? Like and like it's different for everyone. I understand that.
Yes, it is different for everyone.
Yeah.
It definitely is different for everyone. The timing is different for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But what I would say to this beautiful, loving mother who's getting triggered all the time when she goes to that meeting is like, what if that's happening for a reason? What if you're feeling these things every time you show up? Because, we can go two ways on this. We can go biological or we go spiritual. Let's go spiritual. Why not? What if that's your son saying, hey, mom, don't forget about me. Do something.
Right.
Because maybe the people who've passed on know more than we do. Conversely, let's talk about biology, right? Maybe that's the body retaining this memory, and it's so sick and tired of having this context around this memory that every time I think about it, it feels the way that it feels, and I have to feel that feeling in a really big, intense way in order for it to shift and change, and understand that it shifts and changes.
Right.
That's
huge.
I totally agree with you that everybody grieves differently, and the timing of that and the process of that is differently, but. And I'm going to use but here, not and deliberately because I'm going to discount everything I just said. I have found that there's one way to move through pain, and it is to feel it.
Yep.
You can't get around it. And that requires you to cry, to
Break down.
emote, to break down, to lose it, to allow, little tiny cracks in your heart to form as it breaks open, like a muscle does, because when you tear that muscle and it hurts like freaking hell, why? So that it can get bigger, so proteins can come back in and make that thing stronger than it was before. And I genuinely believe that that's what's happening through the process of grief. His muscles are tearing and becoming bigger, right? And allowing us to really, truly experience the feeling of being alive.
Right.
Well, it's like grief and love are hand in hand.
They are, but
that's
so
what
many,
it is.
So many of us are feeling averse.
Yeah.
That we just want to shove it away and control it and package it and
I'll feel this later.
I'm going to do it the way that I think I need to do it.
I want to
Well, and I think that's what a lot of addicts do.
Yes,
I mean,
that's exactly what
they're
addiction is.
covering up. They're covering up their pain with alcohol and drugs because they don't want to feel that. They don't want to feel that pain. Nobody does. That's uncomfortable.
Yep, it is.
So I think that's the way. So I mean, really, it's a dual, triple diagnosis when they say, "Oh, I'm a drug addict." Well, why are you? Why?
Yeah.
What's underneath that?
Let's see why you're doing this to
Mm-hmm.
cover your pain up.
Yes.
What are you doing?
Yes.
You know, and the same with me. I mean, the lady that was on our board that really has a hard time. Her son was previously on our board. The son that she lost.
Goodness.
An amazing child. And I know that she wanted to come on there because she really felt like what we're doing. She's a huge donor. She's been a donor since the very first of Sobriety Foundation. But it was really triggering for her to be on our board. I think because of him being on there. There might have been a lot of different reasons.
Oh, yeah.
But I totally get that when you're talking about spirituality and maybe that's what you needed to open up the pain.
Sure.
Yeah.
And zero judgment from me on like what you choose to do with your pain and how you choose to grieve and all that.
Sure.
Right. And I'm not even providing some sort of prescription for the process of grief.
Yeah.
More, I'm just hopefully trying to illustrate that that this thing that you're feeling
Mm-hmm.
that is uncomfortable and shitty and horrible and yucky
It's
and I
icky.
hate it and I don't want it. Maybe that is the thing that is going to clue you into what it means to be human.
I love it.
And
I totally agree with that.
and-
I really
and-
do.
it's hard. I get it, man. It's freaking
It's
difficult. It's brutal. Like, I don't want to go there either. But I've just found in my own experience, the more I'm willing to go there and open to going there, the more I freaking learn about
Need to
how
be.
incredibly amazing this experience is
I
and how
agree.
short it is
Yeah.
and how there's not that much time. And
Yeah.
I probably need to push a little bit harder today than I did yesterday because I gotta do some more cool stuff.
Yeah.
Because what if it's done?
Yeah.
Who knows when it's
Yeah.
gonna be
It-
done?
Who
Yeah.
knows?
Yeah, like
I
let's
mean-
go, people. You know?
I mean, I have Carson's tattoo was life's short. Play it cool.
I love that.
Which is so
That's
true.
beautiful.
You know,
Yeah.
and it was just amazing that I always felt like he knew he wasn't going to be around here for very long.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what am I going to do? How am I going to pick up the slack to make his life so that it was really important when it was on this earth? What am I going to? And I know that when I'm helping others through the Sobriety Foundation, I feel him wholeheartedly.
Oh, I love that.
And he was, we have a bike path by our house, and he loved the homeless people. And I mean, I would look over when he was alive, I'd look over on the bike path and he would be sharing a cigarette with this homeless dude. And I would just look over there, and then the next minute I would see him bringing him to my house, and he would go in my pantry and
Get him some
get whatever he needed to get. So he always had a really soft heart for people that were struggling. And he always liked to find out their story. If he'd see anybody on the streets, he'd always talk to him and give them things and
Connection.
and wanted to know their story.
There it is.
Why
Yeah.
do you like living
Yeah.
out here? And they just so I really, really feel like this is what he would want me to be doing.
That's amazing.
100%.
So and you know what? We've gone through a lot of growing pains with the Sobriety Foundation. I mean, Matt, how long ago were you on the board? Like maybe 6 years.
6
We
years,
were
yeah.
we were like going through a lot of growing pains then. We had to let go some of our board members that had helped me get things started. And that was a very, very hard thing to do. We've had to go through a lot of change and a lot of hard work to make it the foundation it is now. And we're still learning and still
Oh,
growing,
yeah.
and we'll adapt to whatever we need to in the future. But we still got a lot of work
Yeah, and
to do.
the nonprofit space, actually, I didn't realize how difficult it is. and
It is
competitive
really-
it is.
It
And
is
it's like
super competitive.
it's kind of cutthroat.
Yeah.
It is. And
Yeah.
I have Ian Acker on my board with Fit to Recover and Evan
Ian's
Doan
rad.
with you, Sarah. And they're both nonprofits, and they both help. We all help each other because we don't want it to become that.
Right.
Yeah.
We're all in the
Yes.
same business
Industry.
here.
We're all trying to help.
Exactly.
Yeah, let's do it together.
We're all trying, and so
Yeah.
they help me, I help them. And it's been a beautiful thing
That's awesome.
to see people work together instead of, like you say, a cutthroat type
Oh,
of,
yeah.
because there's only so much money to go around.
Yeah.
People only have so much money to donate.
Yep.
So you're trying to get as much money as you possibly can to help your cause.
Yeah.
And each one of us are passionate about our own thing,
Yes. Yeah.
So each one of us think that you should be donating to us, and
Yeah.
and there's only so much money to go around.
It's
so.
true. It makes it tough. But that
does.
collaborative, cohesive style of charity work, you guys really emulate that. And I
You guys
think
do a great
that's
job.
really fantastic because there are other organizations that don't do it as much, and it makes it challenging. And I think there's room to kind of be vocal about that and be honest with each other and be like, hey,
Sure.
let's work together. I understand that there's 12 people with deep pockets in this room, but maybe we could do 3, 3, and 3, and then the other 3 can decide what they want to, rather than I'm going to take all 12.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
So do you guys have your Sobriety Foundation scheduled for this year, the fundraiser?
Yes, we do. We have
When is
it's
that?
going to be on October 11th
Okay.
at the Grand America.
Okay.
And our keynote speakers, we've already got him all booked. It's going to be Kevin McCauley.
Oh, I love him.
Oh.
So
awesome.
he is amazing, and he's coming to do it for free. I mean,
because he's a stud.
all of
that's
our
how he is.
speakers from the very beginning of Sobriety Foundation, they have donated their time.
That's cool.
And it's just amazing the people that we get. And he's going to come in. We're going to have Randall Carlisle be our MC again this year.
Cool.
Last year we had Casey Scott because Randall wasn't feeling so well, but Randall has decided to come back. So those are the two things that we've got outlined. And of course, we've got the Grand Barrack all scheduled again. So
That's cool.
hopefully we raised more money last year than we've ever raised before.
Fantastic.
That's where we raise most of our income is from that once a year fundraiser. So hopefully it will be as successful as it has been in the past.
And it's so fun. How can our listeners, if they want to go, how can they go get a ticket?
So go on sobrietyfoundation.org. All the information is going to be on there.
Okay.
And as we've just got it listed right now,
Okay.
but there will be a lot more information as it gets closer.
It gets closer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which you guys don't want to miss out on these sobriety. Like it's been one of my favorite fundraisers we go to every year.
Oh, yeah, it's
I was so excited to make it last year. I was like, and I was just in awe when we walked in. It was beautiful.
It's cool. You get to dress up in like 20s garb.
Yes,
and,
it's
yeah,
fun.
It's a blast.
Yes.
It's a
It was.
blast.
It
Lots
was
of feathers. There's feathers everywhere.
Well, and it's just you get a
Boas.
big group
Boas.
of and boas, but you have a big, huge, like hundreds. How many people did you have attend this last
we
one?
had 320 last
Yeah.
year, so that was really neat.
I
That was our biggest one that we've ever had.
That's me.
Yeah.
It was a little long last year. We're going to streamline it so it's not going to be so long. We're going to start it at 5:30 and hopefully get everybody out of there between 8:30 and 9.
Okay.
And that's when past years, that's how but last year we just ran just a little bit long. We had 2 keynote speakers. We're just going to cut it back
Yeah.
to 1 keynote speaker this year and streamline it. So we'll get you out of there at a good time
time.
instead of
Well,
keeping you there all night.
And Macaulay, dude, Dr. Macaulay is a stud. I've seen him speak many times. We saw him at
Yeah, he's great.
the recovery weekend
yes,
deal or whatever.
yeah.
He's like a total stud, and his ability to explain addiction and break it down, nobody better. That's great.
Nobody can do it better than him. I don't
I'm
think.
really, really glad that he's doing
I've been
that. That's
trying
cool
to get
hear.
him for 10 years.
Have
And
you?
he finally, I called right after the speakeasy this year, and he had written the foreword in one of our keynote speakers, Jason Coombs' book.
Oh, okay.
And so I just said, hey, Mr. Macaulay, I really would love you. And he goes, okay.
I was like, I got you.
And he was so cute about it. And I just, he just said, I'll do it.
Good.
So
Oh, that's awesome.
I'll be there.
Good. He should. We need him
Oh.
to stay local.
He lives in Sedona, Arizona.
He's in Arizona now.
Yeah, he's
they
in-
had his addiction center was in Park City for a while,
Yeah.
which was cool.
Yeah, it was.
Anyways, he's fantastic. You're fantastic. We
Yeah.
can thank you.
Thank
any
you
more.
so
Thank you so much for
much.
inviting me to your
Welcome.
podcast, you guys. I
Yes.
love your podcast. I listen to it every week. You guys are amazing. Appreciate the wonderful guests you've had on there. Just love your podcast.
Thanks.
Thanks. We love
Thanks
you.
for thanks
You're a
for
good
getting
soul.
it out. Well,
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
You
but
are. You are.
are.
I love you both,
Own it.
and I appreciate what you're doing out there in the recovery community because it's very near and dear to my heart. So,
That's awesome.
We'll keep doing it
Yeah, we will.
together.
yes, absolutely.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
Takes a village.
Yes, that's right.
It does.
Especially these recovery kids. All these addicts, man, they're wild.
They are
We need a lot of help.
pretty amazing.
So if you want to help, come help out.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Thanks, Susan.
Thank you.
Thank you.